but this can be every day in your life, whether you have a book launching or you are just trying to figure out how to feel the day more and feel more joy, is just starting to really be mindful about what are those words we say after I am. And what I mean by that is, I am so tempted, and I catch myself saying, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. But it's like,
I'm exhausted, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed.
Yes.
I can't handle it. I am unworthy. I am ugly. I am, like, all these things we say to ourselves.
And those words have power, right? And those words take on a life. And part of optimizing my own energy and my own confidence in this process, because, by the way, as a first-time author pouring every ounce of my being into this book, I'm also tempted to have thoughts like, oh, I'm not qualified to be an author. All the thoughts that we think, right? Our inner critic. And it's like, okay, nope, you got it. Like, I'm trying to be mindful of every time I have a thought like that, replacing it with something that is true that I need to focus on.
Her new book, by the way, is called Believe It. If you're new to us today, her book is called Believe It. It's coming out this next month, so you can pre-order on Amazon. But what she's done, for those who aren't familiar with what she's talking about, she's gotten a group of people together in a Facebook group early, and she's kind of like encouraging them. They're like her street team. You know, they like get the early previews, and then they're going to be the ones helping promote the book and share the book. In other words, she's building the tribe and the squad in advance, and then they get that reward of being part of it early, and then they get to activate and support her too. So that's what she's talking about.
Yeah, and it's free, and it's like everyone's welcome to join, and it's just fun, right? So, so it's been one of the biggest highlights. I've never done anything like it. So, and I'm sharing this to also share that sometimes we have big highs and highlights and moments, and then all of a sudden we do something and make a mistake, and that's what happened to me this morning. And so I'm just going to share it, because anyone else going through this, I was literally, and still am, my heart is so full. When I look at some of, and some of you on our lives are in that group already, but you know, it's the most fulfilling thing. And then I wake up this morning and I make the mistake, of looking at my emails, right?
Don't.
I know.
Before your morning routine.
Yes.
Before your morning routine.
Well,
yes.
Actually, technically, it was during my morning walk. Right?
Okay.
Never a good idea. And I realized something that I think have you guys ever, Brendan, you included, but anyone else with us live, you think you've mastered something and you're really proud of it. Like, I've mastered not letting someone else steal my joy. Like, I think, okay, I'm so good at that. And I know how to compartmentalize it. I know how to take a big step back and think big picture. And all of a sudden this morning, it was like, what? And I see this big thing happen. And it's thankfully it's not within my own team, but it's two other things, groups of people that are doing something really cool for the book, and they're fighting. And I'm just like, and all of a sudden I'm on calls, and people are dropping balls left and right. Someone said, I'm not grateful. I'm like, and I'm thinking, no, you just didn't do a good job. It's not that I'm not grateful. Like, we need to get this. And it was this whole thing. And I realized, oh, wow, I am letting my own joy get hijacked right now. Yes. Right? This is on me. This isn't on anyone else.
Such good insight. Yes.
And I'm just like, wow, okay. And I mean, it was really hijacked to the point where I was almost crying. Like, I was almost in tears. Like, it was so stressful, this call. And I was holding back tears, and I was just like, okay. And I think these are the moments, right? And listen, I wanted to bring this up because, Brendan, for everyone, whether you have a coaching business or a dream you're going after, maybe you are someone who allows someone in your family to hijack your joy, or every time that relative calls, you're like, okay, deep breath, right?
Yes. But here's the good news. I just want to say this to everybody, and it's, that's totally normal. Our emotions are easily hijacked, not because we're weak, because we are literally human. So emotions are automatic, they're physical, they're impulsive, they're reactive, and they're often like in the body, and they just happen. And so don't ever worry if your emotions get hijacked, because emotions by definition automatically happen. And so allow yourself like, oh, wow, I'm getting hijacked right now. Don't feel bad about it. Don't realize, oh, I'm no good at this. It's like, oh, realize there's a difference between emotions and feelings, right? Emotions happen. They're automatic. They're impulsive. They're in the body. Feelings are, how am I defining that emotion? And am I choosing to hold on to this meaning and this thinking related to this emotion in a way that either supports my next action of integrity or shuts me down or makes me antagonistic to others? Because that's usually what happens. An emotion that you don't translate well into a feeling shuts you down, or it makes you antagonistic to others. Often both can happen if you're not careful. That's when the real hijack happening, because that's the difference between a hijack of an emotion and a hijack of a mindset. And so in the minute, if you're like, oh, they get me so mad, that's emotion. That comes up. It's if you hold that and it shuts you down or makes you antagonistic and now act outside of integrity or stop progress, now that's transferred into a hijacking of mindset and attitude. And that's when to notice it. This is why you said this, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get back to your story, but I just grabbed this. This is my high performance planner. And I want you all to see this because people don't think I actually do this stuff. But let me give you a blank page so you can kind of see a blank page. So these are my morning mindset prompts. This is the high performance planner. So we have morning mindset prompts. You plan your day, you review your day, your scorecard yourself, okay, every day. Listen to one of these questions, y'all. I hope you have something like this, y'all. Listen to this question. I ask myself, I'll just read the first 3 things every day. One thing I can get excited about today is, if one word could describe the person that I want to be today, then that word is this, and here's why it is. Number 3, someone who needs me on my A game today. Someone needs me to show up and do great today. But then this is the most important one for me, my anti-hijacking affirmation of the day. Number 4, a situation that might stress me out or trip me up today could be this situation, dealing with these people, talking with these people. And then my favorite thing, ... And it says, and the way that my best self would deal with that situation is. So here's what every day, Jamie, this is true. Every day, my shorthand note for that is PPL, which means people. Every day, running the businesses we run, the size of what we're trying to do, talking with all these people, someone's watching this and they're going to post hate. They don't like me, or they don't, they think my shirt's dumb, or I'm privileged, or my hair is stupid, or whatever, something. Someone will say something. Every day, people are the ones who are going to trip you up. And so every day I remind myself, all right, today, someone's going to do something that's upsetting. Someone's going to underperform. Someone's going to blame me. Someone's going to put their stuff on me. Someone's going to project at me. Someone's going to belittle me. Every day, people, not everybody, but there will be that person. Some days, that's going to be your spouse about a conversation. Some days, that's going to be this team. Someday, somebody's going to throw a wrench in the whole thing. How is my best self going to deal with that? Okay. I'm going to recognize the emotion. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to take a bunch of deep breaths. I'm going to breathe through it, be very attentive to my breathing to gain control of my physical body, because remember, emotion out of control is often body out of control. And so I'm going to do the one thing I can do. I'm going to ground my feet. I'm going to take a bunch of deep breaths. I'm going to realize their drama and their train wrecks are not my responsibility. They're not, unless they're my child under the age of 6. That's one thing. But everybody else, their stuff is not my stuff. I'm not in charge of the train wrecks of other people. And I actually say this to myself every morning. This wasn't me giving a speech. This is what I'm like writing and thinking. Okay, something's going to happen. When it does, Brendan, be ready, be okay. I tell myself this every day. So it's that mental preparation for the train wrecks that help it when it happens. You're just in a better place. I'm sorry if I went on a tangent on that, Jamie.
No, this is so good. Also, too, will you repeat this? Because I think this is so powerful, right? The difference between when you feel an emotion's getting hijacked, right? And let's say it's your mother-in-law that says something. Or let's say it's, I remember working so hard and not being able to afford to hire employees. And then when I could start hiring, right, we built to over 1,000 employees in my company at Cosmetics. And
I can't even comprehend that.
When we first started hiring, I realized, oh, wow, right? This is now also another job. Even when we had 5 people, I was like, oh, this is a lot. And all of a sudden, right? Anyone out there right now who can relate to this, who has a team and maybe they're awesome, even the best of teams, though, you have a lot of different personalities and you have people that do. I mean, sometimes you have people that throw temper tantrums. Sometimes you have people that bully and all the things that, you know what I mean? And when they're inside your organization and you're building teams and you're constantly making decisions of, is this person the right fit? And or they're just a rock star and all of a sudden they're starting to lose inspiration and momentum, and you want to keep there's so many moving parts. And you know, every day I think as an entrepreneur, to your point too, there's kind of like fires that come up, and sometimes they're people and sometimes there are other things. But you talked about something I thought that was just so profound, and I'm reliving my morning in my head as I'm listening to you. And this is so helpful, and maybe someone else out there right now needs to hear this, or it's going to set their day up for success today, right? Because let's get real, there's a lot of emotions happening about today, and for so many people they're huge emotions of hope and inspiration with everything going on in the news. For other people, they're big moments of fear and anger. There's so much, right? So you just talked about something I thought so profound, about the difference between, because, you know, I just am plain and simple, like, Brendan, I let someone steal my joy this morning. For you to break it down on this granular level is so powerful, I think. And if you could just share it again for anyone hopping on now, but the difference between letting someone hijack your emotions versus hijack your mindset. And can you just break down the difference and how you recognize it's happening? And then, and I know your morning prompts are so powerful for this, but how you recognize it's happening. What do you do in that moment to let it not get past an emotion and transcend to a mindset? This is huge and so powerful.
And so how did you take those emotions and turn it into inspiration?
Yeah, I love what you just said, by the way. Like, I'd had enough with feeling not enough. That's so good. Like, that's so good. By the way,
I don't know if that was from the book, but I remember reading that.
I don't think so. I think it's brilliant out of your, literally from you right now in those words. But how many of us, right? And not just as women, but especially as women, if we really think about it, like, we've had enough with feeling not enough. I don't know. I love that how you just articulated that. So thank you. Thank you. I want to write it down before I forget it. It's so good. Yeah. And, you know, I had that realization almost by accident when I was kind of going through this big setback, what I thought was a big setback in my journey of my own dreams and goals. And I went through this really rough season. And Joel Osteen says this best, that sometimes our setbacks are really setups, right? For what we're called to do. And I didn't know that's what was happening at the time, because when we go through these like really hard times, A, it just sucks. And B, we don't, you know, sometimes it doesn't feel fair, or we don't see it as like, how could this possibly be something that is fate or meant to be, or setting us up for something better. So for me, I was in this season where I was working as a television news anchor, and you know, Shalene, from the time, by the way, I'll finish this story, and not to hop all over, but I'm so impressed. I just have to say this, you talking about being a student of infomercials, of television, over the 8 years I spent in the QVC green room and doing thousands of shows, I met so many brand founders and entrepreneurs, and they kind of never lasted. Most of them, I'd say maybe 99%. And the two things that I noticed made the difference with the ones that actually built something over time is they were humble enough to be a student because I was like a student, right? I was like, okay, how do I figure this out? How do I understand how to communicate on television? And the other thing was the authenticity piece. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because when I look at, you can't fake authenticity, right? And I think, as you know, and so many thought leaders talk about how the only way to have a real human connection with anybody is to show up authentically.
Mhm.
And when we don't, when we show up as like our representative or whatever, we create a barrier. And that can also be a barrier with customers, right? So there's so many people
Right.
online building their online businesses or courses or communities. They're wondering why they're not getting traction, and they're comparing themselves to everyone else and all those things. And I think so many times the one thing that changes everything is when they're just kind of like F it, and they fully show up, right, as their authentic self. The way you do, showing your eyelashes on your counter and all these things.
Oh,
like,
you mean these?
those. When I see them, I'm like, oh, I connect with you because I feel you know what I'm saying? And it's like that through line. And just to share this really quick, sorry, I know it's a side note, but after spending 8 years and like 100-hour weeks in the QVC green room and seeing thousands and thousands of brand founders and entrepreneurs, take their shot at their dream on the air, and most of them only last one show ever.
Right.
I started looking back at like, what is this commonality between the people that last and the people that make it and the people that are able to build something that lasts and that matters. And the big epiphany I had was, oh, the people who are the same on air as they are in the green room, for better or worse, like they weren't at all similar, but the people that were the same on air as they were in the green room are the ones that lasted. And I was like, and it was this big thing, to your point that you started this out with, just on how you can't fake authenticity. And I feel like if so many people get so sidetracked with comparison, especially in the social media world, and then they see competitors doing one thing and they get distracted and think they need to do all these things. And it's like, none of that actually sets you up for success. If you get rid of all of it and just show up with your eyelashes on your counter full out, that's your power. And I saw that play out over and over and over and over again. And I feel like when people actually get that, it's freeing, because we start to feel enough, because we realize like trying to change who we are for anyone else.
Hard.
It's hard.
Can't keep the story
it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And also it just creates a barrier of disconnection, no matter what area of life, whether it's like personal relationships or even relationships with customers. And I just think that it's so freeing when everyone in their own time and in their own journey, sees that play out around them or gets that lesson. I feel like it's the most freeing thing ever, because it takes a lot of pressure off, because you don't need to be anything other than who you are. And your only journey should be, how do I step into all of who I am? Right.
What's interesting though, is when we're feeling insecurities, I'm obviously familiar with the term imposter syndrome. And I've always said imposter syndrome isn't a bad term. You have to be good at being an imposter before you are actually the thing. It's like little girls, you watch them and they impersonate what it's like to be a mommy, or to play house, or to be a teacher, or whatever it is, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. And I remember every job I ever had from age like 16 on, day one, I always felt like, oh my, what am I doing here? I better pretend that I belong here. I better act like all the other people I see. And, it's not authentic, but that's kind of that's how you survive in the beginning, is to just like, oh, I'll just impersonate what I think I'm supposed to be acting and doing. And that's just what we do to make ourselves fit in. And it's all that we know. And I think for so many people, we do that until we're like, okay, what happens if I just try this little thing and see how people respond to it when I'm actually myself? What was that moment for you? And walk us through the fear that you had before you did it. And what was it?
Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh. Hearing you talk about this makes me so excited, because my instincts are, I literally just want to ask you questions for the whole show, which is, you know what I mean? Because you also went on that journey in your own fitness whole world.
Oh, yeah.
I think you were Guinness World record holder.
Crazy.
I'm literally doing a show with a Guinness World Record holder right now. This is,
my mom is so proud.
Yeah. Well, and then you transition to like sharing all the stuff, not just anyways. Yeah. I love it. One thing you said too, and this is something that I went on my own journey for of doing that is I remember, when Oprah once said when she started, she would try to pretend and mimic Barbara Walters when she would go on television, right? And then she eventually had this realization after she was comfortable in that space, kind of to your point, where she was like, oh, I think I could be a better version of Oprah than I can be in Barbara Walters.
Yeah. Do you remember that moment where you're like, I'm going to just do this and let's see how it goes?
I do. And it came after that season of big setbacks. So what I mean by that is I was anchoring the news. And since the time I was a little girl, I would sit in my living room, I'd watch Oprah. And I thought my whole life, I want to interview other people. That's what I wanted to tell other people's stories. And so after school, I was working as a news anchor, and I started in real small market news. And much like being a student, by the way, to your point earlier, I had friends that got their internships in big stations. But sometimes when you go in the really big fancy stations, you kind of just pour coffee or whatever. And I went to an unpaid internship in Yakima, Washington, where it was like the team was so lean that you had to do everything. So I got to learn how to write copy and edit video tape to tape, old school, and shoot one-man band style, right? Everything, like and run the teleprompter with the foot pedal while I was, doing a story and all those things. And I just knew that's what I want to do. And so I had, I was working in TV news, and I thought this going to be my whole career. And I'd worked up to a station, a local Fox station in Portland, Oregon. And I was anchoring the weekend morning news. And this sort of big season of self-doubt, big season of setback came when I started getting this skin condition called rosacea, which is hereditary. There's no cure for it. And for me, it would get so severe that like my cheeks they'd feel like sandpaper. I would get huge bumps all over, and I would be anchoring the news live. And then I would hear in my earpiece from the producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. Can you wipe it off? Like live in the show. And I knew I couldn't wipe it off. And I knew what it was that makeup breaking up and the redness coming through. So for the first time in my life, I started being aware of makeup and buying, I spend my paycheck, which isn't very much in television news, started buying products like from the pro makeup artist shops, and then the drugstores, and then anything I could get from department stores. I would try to get the free samples first. And then after that, I would try to like, okay, it's a $200 foundation, but maybe this works, right? And no matter what it was, it didn't work. It either wouldn't cover it, or it'd be so thick that I would be talking on the news and it would look like a mask of clay cracking.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was just like, and so I went through this season of self-doubt, the season of thinking, okay, am I going to get fired? Am I going to lose viewers? Because I went to a dermatologist to explain there's no cure, and I got all the prescription stuff and none of it was working. And I had this kind of big aha moment where I thought, wow, if I can figure out like how to make a product that works, it'll help me, but it may help so many other people out there too. And in that journey, right? But by the way, I knew nothing about the beauty industry. I had no connections. I didn't know how it was possible. I just started getting this kind of like knowing, I guess. And well, what if? Could I figure it out? Could I do it? What would happen? And I didn't realize at the time that it was a big setback that was a setup to something I was supposed to do. On this journey, though, when we talk about going from imposter into just full confidence of who we finally are, I had a big epiphany happen. And I realized, after trying so many products out there, I realized, why can't I freaking find anything that works? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. And then I realized, and this was 2007, I realized, my whole life, to the point of your question, my whole life, I've always seen these ads on television or in magazines selling beauty products, and the models always have perfect skin.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anyone that has, bright red rosacea with bumps on it in an ad. And then I realized, oh, I don't even know if they're wearing the product they're selling. And then I realized this whole kind of big epiphany of, that my whole life as a little girl, then growing up, when I would see those ads, I would love them. I would aspire to look like that. But yet deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And this big kind of moment came over me where I was like, you know what? And by the way, I'm going on air as a news anchor every day, trying to look perfect, trying to do all those things. I had this moment where I'm like, oh, what if this isn't even about the product? What if I could figure out how to create a product that works? But then what if I launch this beauty company and I take my makeup off, which I'd never done in my life, take my makeup off and show, like, if I could create a product that works, I'll just take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea and show how it works. And maybe one day I could get on QVC and then use models that are all different ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin problems and call them beautiful and mean it. And what if I could do something to shift culture in the beauty industry? Because if I could be successful doing that, I was like, I bet you other brands will copy me. And like, what, I started having these crazy God-sized dreams, right?
You have interviews today. And I know lots of our people here, they go live or they have to do that post or they have to show that video or they have to take that important call. How do you prepare? Because confidence is a lot about preparation, getting yourself in the right place to serve. How do you get in a good place to knock out these interviews today?
Yeah. So for me, it's a lot about the topic of, actually, Joel Osteen said this best, that what we say after the words "I am" change our whole life, change our day, change our moment, right? In this season, I haven't worked this hard in many, many, many years. And I worked hard for a lot of years.
So hard.
I have not worked so hard in this book launch. I mean, it's 20-hour days, 7 days a week right now. It's a lot. And I'm so grateful. I'm doing it because I believe in every ounce of my being. This book is going to bless so many people. There are so many people that need to reignite their own belief in themselves again.
Yes.
And I'm intentionally donating 100% of the proceeds and my author royalties to causes I believe in, because that actually gives me an extra boost of energy as well.
That's a motivation. That's a drive. Yeah. Show up for other people is a big part of confidence.
Yeah. And I think a really big part of confidence for every single person is starting that to be truly mindful of what are those words we say after the words "I am," right? To use it, to say it the way that Joel Osteen so beautifully said it. And what I mean by that is, what we focus on magnifies, right? What we put out there is what we pay attention to. And so to build confidence, to go into a day like today with 4 interviews. And by the way, my very last show today, at the very end of the day, is Jay Shetty's show.
Oh yeah, Jay. We love Jay. It's
great. Although I'm doing 4 shows first, I'm like, I have to be, you heard me on Clubhouse last night. I was a mess. I was like, so I'm like, okay, I got to pray for that I'm articulate and I can serve his community and add value. And so one thing I've been doing, just to share, but this can be every day in your life, whether you have a book launching or you are just trying to figure out how to feel the day more and feel more joy, is just starting to really be mindful about what are those words we say after "I am." And what I mean by that is, I am so tempted, and I catch myself saying, "I'm so tired. I'm so tired." But it's like,
I'm
okay,
exhausted. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed.
Yes.
I can't handle it. I am unworthy. I am ugly. I am, like, all these things we say to ourselves.
And those words have power, right? And those words take on a life. And part of optimizing my own energy and my own confidence in this process, because, by the way, as a first-time author pouring every ounce of my being into this book, I'm also tempted to have thoughts like, oh, I'm not qualified to be an author. All the thoughts that we think, right? Our inner critic. And it's like, okay, nope, you got it. Like, I'm trying to be mindful of every time I have a thought like that, replacing it with something that is true that I need to focus on.
So good, though. I hope you all hear this. It's like, so many of you think one day this, like the negative self-talk or whispers goes away.
Mm-mm.
If it was going to go away, it would go away for Jamie Kern Lima. She's achieved everything. So it's like, okay, you have to go. She's like so many things people strive for, you know, from family to wealth to impact to goodness to living in your values. But even if you're a good person, and you all are good persons, or you wouldn't show up for personal development. Good people show up for personal development, right? And the challenge is, you know, who was it who told me? I think it was Earl Nightingale who originally said, your ultimate problem is that you think you shouldn't have any.
Mm.
It's like, you're always going to have problems. You're always going to have negative self-talk. It's learning to react better to that, to adapt better to that, to set an intention that is stronger and higher than that. So when the negative self-talk comes up, your purpose, your mission, your identity of what you believed in your prefrontal cortex, which is you consciously decided upon it. So when this unconscious or that physical emotion or that, you know, impulsive negativity comes up and smacks you in the back of the head, your prefrontal left cortex has designed and said to yourself so many times consciously the truth, that the truth of your consciousness goes, hey, I hear you making noise, but you don't get the floor right now. We have things to do. You don't get the floor right now because I don't like what you're saying and I know it not to be true. So you consciously program yourself so many times with personal development over and over and over and over again that when the noise comes up, you're more able to battle it back and grab on to that pull of your truth. Grab onto your pull of your destiny, of your greatness, of the things you've conditioned that I am this, you know, I am capable, I am worthy, I am ready, I am willing, I'm a hard worker, I care. All these things we've said to ourselves over and over and over again, bam, we're pulled in that direction because we put it into our brain so many times.
And it's so easy to stop doing that, to forget to do that, to not do that. And I think that's really important because the words we tell ourselves about ourselves are just, they're like the most powerful words, right? And so, you know, if you think about even just, and Brendan, you're in such a level of intentionality with what you do, with your high performance planner, with all of this stuff, right?
I have to, otherwise I'm a hot mess all day. Like, geez.
For regular people like me. So no, but seriously, I'm just being super real. I have loved personal growth since as long as I can remember. You know, I would save my Denny's tip money when I was a waitress to buy personal growth tapes, right? Like, I love it. I love it so much. Yet even me, every single day, someone who loves personal growth, I still, yes. If I don't pay attention, I will still default to the words I say after I am, like, and even in my own head, like, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, all the things. And it's like, okay, I think this is a huge idea, even as we are in the tail end of Confidence Week on the Growth Day Morning Show, just for everyone listening and part of this with us right now, to just today even say, what words am I saying to myself or to someone else after I say I am? And just pay attention to it for a minute, because it is so easy to say words that don't serve ourselves, right? And to your point, getting in this habit of replacing those words with I am, grateful, or I am hardworking, or I am a really good cook of Kraft macaroni and cheese, or I am, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are the things we need to put in our heads over and over and over. But we're so busy that it's so easy to not even realize and just to default to this commonality of human connection, frankly, because think about it, when we connect with so many people, especially in the people in our lives who we love, but don't have an interest in growth.
Yes.
We connect through them so often with things that don't serve us, like, oh, I'm this or that, or this problem happened, right? So it's really just like, okay, to take ourselves up to that next level of joy, of growth, of purpose, of everything else. Those words after we say the words I am,
they matter.
Game changer. Yeah.
Game changer. And this is why Jamie and I are both super passionate about Growth Day. I know we have a lot of members new to the community. I'm watching the comments. If you're not a member of Growth Day, please just go to growthday.com, just growthday.com. because for less than $1 a day for the whole year, you get the best personal development trainers training you and teaching you live, and you get the replays. But here's what's cool, that most people, like when you're in Growth Day, you can also play those replays or watch it live with your family and with the kids. And I bring this up specifically because that I am part, that negative self-talk, you know when that is formed? That self-talk is ingrained for 20 years of people's lives, on average, 27 years of people's lives before they engage in personal development. So the vast majority of the world, we have this data, the vast majority of the world does not consume, buy, or purchase any personal development until they are 27 years old. Now, you and I had the blessing, we were earlier than that. We were like young and hustling and listened to like, Wayne Dyer or Tony Robbins or all, Deepak or Earl Nightingale or the greats like Ziggs and everybody, right? So we were early. But for most people, for 27 years, their self-talk has put a groove in their brain. It's like carved an unconscious pattern of talk for 27 years on average. And then here's the sad part. Only 2% of the world engages in personal development. That means that 27 is when most people start, but only 2% start. So most people suffer throughout their 30s from the grooves they set in their teens and 20s. So they suffer in their 30s because they don't engage personal development. They don't realize there's another level for them. They don't realize they can release the pain and release the self-talk. They don't realize that there's strategies to improve their relationships or build wealth or take care of their body. And then it gets so bad, bam, the next highest level of personal development happens between 38 and 42, sometimes called midlife crises. All of a sudden it's like, this is so bad, I have to figure out. Now it's a wound they have to fix because they didn't engage early. And I only bring that up, not to judge, but to say to you all, sign up for Growth Day, because you can also be playing this for your kids to set that groove in their brain early. Or maybe you got a teenager or you got someone in college in your household right now at taking school from home. What if for 1 hour or 2 hours a week, they were in Growth Day Live with me and the best personal development trainers, diversity from around the country and around the world, from different backgrounds, sharing personal development and psychological advice. And now that groove starts getting set. And so, because it's hard to overcome later if you don't set the right groove early on. So stick to your personal development, listen to your podcast, be in Growth Day, share that with your family. And I think it just makes a difference for the next generation in a big way. That's why I'm passionate about it. I get
big way.
The microphone is a metaphor for the sound going into your ears, carving patterns of beliefs into your brain.
Yes.
Right? You got to remember, everyone speaking to you has now made an imprint on your brain. And the more they speak to you, the more that imprint can be thick if you're not careful or you're not having a stopgap between their voice and your internal voice and what gets wired in your brain. Yeah. And a lot of people's mindsets are terrible, not because they're a terrible person or even that they had terrible events in their lives. They had toxic people who they allowed to be toxic into their brain so many times, and they believed it, or they just kept allowing it, not setting a boundary or standing up for themselves, or they were in that awful predicament. There was no choice. And it's just this toxic parent or this toxic person. And that's why you have to learn mindfulness. It's why you have to learn to control your thoughts. It's why you have to care about self-mastery, personal development. It's why you have to get therapy if you need therapy, because you don't know that these things have been so hardwired into your brain, but the wiring can be changed. The filtering process can get better. And most importantly, you can create all the new grooves by neuroplasticity by retraining your brain with more personal development that is positive, optimistic, strong, encouraging, believing in you, sharing messages of faith, of hope, of power, of optimism. Like, that's a beautiful thing about personal development, is it helps you craft the mindset that will allow you to be happier more naturally and allow you to be more focused naturally without having to like grit and bear to get happy. No, it's like when you got the right thing going on up here, happiness, focus, intimacy, love, that stuff flows versus like having to like logic it out,
Yeah, so good. It's funny. One thing I want to share too, as we talk about mindset, right? And going forward, a lot of people are starting to set goals again and dreams again and think about, okay, what am I going to do coming out of this season and out of this pandemic? And, another thing that just came to mind, Brendan, to share, because this is really important, right? When I was writing my book, I did a phone call with Bob Goff, and he said something to me that I want to share with everybody. Because for you, listen, everyone in part of our morning show right now, it might not be a book for you. Maybe it's a personal goal or a dream or whatever. He said to me, you need to be careful who you share your book with ahead of time. I'm like, oh,
Good.
What do you mean, right? What do you mean? I'm like, do you think I should share it with my family, with all my friends? And he said this one thing, and I'm going to share it with everyone. He said, here's what will happen. I just want to let you know. I'm like, okay. And this applies not just to a book, you guys. It could be your dream, your goal, your hope. He said, I want you to imagine a big group photo, right? Where tens of you were in it. It was a really special event. He goes, when you show someone else that photo, what happens? He goes, they zoom into their own face and they decide if they like the whole photo based on how they look. He goes, to the point where they don't even remember the event, how special it is, what was going on. He goes, they zoom in. He goes, it's human nature. They don't mean anything by it. And he said that. I'm like, okay. So then what happens? I start about 6 months before the book launch, about 6 months ago, I shared it with a couple of people. Exactly what he said. I thought, oh, they're going to be so proud of me and just like sob their eyes out, love this, know how it's going to impact so many people. The first round of feedback was about them. But I won't say
Oh,
names.
absolutely. Yes.
Always about them. And I just want to share this because sometimes we share a dream or a goal and we're like, I don't understand why this person's not excited for me. It's because what they're doing is in your dream or goal, which they're somehow part of because they're in your life, they're zooming in to how it impacts them,
So good.
how it affects them, right? They don't mean any harm by it. It's just this human instinct we have. And so they're seeing it through their own lens of their own limitation or their own experience. And so the feedback that they're giving you is through that lens. And so it's just super important, I think, too, as part of protecting our own mindset, to realize a lot of times based on who we share this stuff to, whether it's a close friend, someone we work out with in the gym, whatever, that's what's going to happen. So, and now I can tell you Bob Goff was right. Like literally every single time.
Because you have to protect that. That's protecting your mindset of your art, of your dream, of your goal, of the hard thing that you're working towards that nobody understands. And I think that's so critical is A, knowing that will come back, but also I always start with the mindset, no one has to understand or approve of or give me permission to do what I love. Yeah. I don't need that generous feedback or encouragement or understanding because most people won't understand because they haven't done it. And the people who have done it and understand, they're going to encourage you, but they might not lift you up. They might not support you because they are also doing their own thing. You should never feel upset that someone doesn't understand or encourage your dream because they have their own beliefs. They have their own dreams. You have been given that gift. That dream has been sown in your heart. That dream has been sown in your soul. They have a different one that has been planted. They have a different one that's been sown in their soul. Let them do theirs and celebrate them if that's your attitude or your personality towards it. But don't worry if they don't get it or support it. You want good, constructive feedback from people who know what they're talking about and who have good, generous intentions for you. Let me say that again. You want feedback from people who know what they're talking about and have good, generous intentions for you. Because some people, they'll give you the feedback and they're smart, but they're really mean. You want the feedback from people who know how to make it constructive, generous. They have intention to see you succeed and do well. Everybody else is a casual observer. It's not like Tom Brady walks down the tunnel and every dude up there screaming down like, run this route. It's not like he listens to them. And you have a lot of people screaming at you who are like, drunken people at the Super Bowl who are just loud and caught up in the moment of their lives screaming at you. You don't need to take their instructions and you don't need to take their instructions or their feedback seriously because they're so often either not the expert or they don't have the true intentions for you. Some of you have spouses who don't support you. And I get asked that all the time. What happens if you haven't? Denise supports you so much. What would you do if somebody didn't? I was like, well, If they didn't, that would just have to be a very difficult and candid conversation. And that would have to be held lots of times in faith, in good trust, in love, with clear expectations and clear communication. And if we didn't get there, then we got to have a very serious conversation. But also, maybe they don't need to. Maybe it's okay, they're doing their thing and you're doing your thing. And you can find the support, encouragement, love, and cheering on from somebody in your industry or your neighbor or your friend. Your spouse doesn't have to be everything for you. Your spouse doesn't have to be your crutch. There's some things, maybe it's okay your spouse thinks you're crazy, but they let you do it. Maybe they don't encourage you, but they're just like, whatever. And I just really believe that we've gotten into a society where we expect our spouses and our partners to be everything for us. We want them to be our banker, our tax advisor. We want them to be our conflict management consultant with the neighbor. We want them to, wash the car and pick up the groceries and cheer us on. I'm more like, get the support that you need for your goals and dreams from those who can provide it. Like my mom doesn't read my books. She doesn't read books. She's not a book person. I have people, some of my closest friends in my world, never seen a video of me, don't care. And I don't take that as a slight. I have one friend, he saw a video of mine and he totally dropped this awesome insult. It was so funny. And he did it on a group text. And it was actually completely right. He's never supported anything I do. And he's one of my best friends. You don't need everyone cheering you on. You need your heart to know what your true north is. And you need to follow that. Whether it's dark, whether you have companions, whether camels are spitting on you or not, whether you know the path, it's about you finding your own personal power. And that's what personal development has taught me. All personal development comes back down to self-reliance in some way or another. Not that we don't need community. Yeah. Not that we don't love feedback. But if it's required for you, it's gonna be a long, hard, difficult, bitter road.
I think that
cheers. That sounded really negative. Cheers. Oh God. Thanks for the motivation, Brendan.
The analogy you gave, though, two things about this that I want to share, because I
thought the camel spitting on people was funny, but no one laughed. It's one of those things I think in my head at the time.
Spitting. I've seen you. Never mind. Okay, so two things. On top of self-reliance, I also think, as a person who's like super sensitive and empathetic, I also think there's this idea. Why I love this morning show so much is because I think that also life isn't meant to do alone. And I think for so many people, they don't have anyone around them, whether it's their partner or anyone else, that is supportive, or that gives them the support that fills their soul. And so, I just want to share that for everyone watching or listening. That's like, I'm screwed. I have no one that's it's like, okay, well, you
can
build it. Absolutely build it. And, I talk about this whole story in my book about how I assembled people in my inner circle around me that don't come from the same kind of upbringing or family or a background or faith or anything that I do, but all have this huge heart to love. And I talk about how I did that because I needed to build that inner circle around me, right? And we can do that on our own journey in life. And I also think that's a big part of this morning show is sometimes you get your support in communities like this, where you're around people that are thinking the same way you are, even if your family and friends aren't. And one more thing I want to share really fast, because your Tom Brady analogy was so brilliant. And he doesn't go out the tunnel and start checking in with each person. What pass do you think I should run? Do you think I should rush it or throw it? I think that's accurate. Right. He's like, boom, he knows. And what I want to say for women, and for all of the women that especially that are in this community right now, live with us and watching the replays, so many studies show that women will tend to do things by consensus before they're confident enough to then go with something, right? Meaning they ask everyone else's opinion and take a survey, and we want to get consult from everybody. And I feel like part of our greatest journey in life is learning to hear our own knowing and then trust it and then go with it, right? And so I love the story of Tom Brady, because every one of us is the Tom Brady in our own lives. Yet we stop on that when we're walking out the tunnel on the field. We know, but we're stopping trying to get consensus from everyone else, right? And at the end of the day, it all becomes so much noise and we start doubting our own knowing. So I love that example, because I think every person can channel that in some way, whether they're a football fan or not. They're like, oh yeah, because no one second
Totally.
guesses what play Tom Brady calls to run, right? Because he trusts himself and everyone trusts him. And I think for us, that journey is trusting ourselves too, as we go after our
And
dream.
building, I think the most important, I want to share something about Jamie did for this new stage of her life. And I hope you will find it empowering. We have to build the community that we need and desire in order to achieve specific goals and dreams in our lives. Because not everyone around us is going to get it, and they don't have to. Stop pushing your dreams on other people that they have to understand it and share it, people. What you have to do is go, oh, if these people don't get it, I need to build. For example, I want to become a book author. None of my friends where I grew up had any clue how to do that. So I didn't go to them and start talking with them and try to brainstorm. I was like, no, I went to seminars that were made for people who wanted to write a book. And I learned how to write a book from people at seminars who were writing books, right? Jamie, she's starting this different type of phase with a book launch, a live event, which, by the way, she has coming up next week for free. There's a link pinned in Instagram. It's just becomingunstoppable.com. So she's doing this. She's doing her first book launch. She's doing her first live event. And what did she do? Well, she went out and met all of like the community of people already doing that. She went into a new community, met all the people, tried to add value to everybody, got to know everybody, was lovely to everybody, and now she has a support. That support, I want you to understand, that support did not exist 3 years ago. So if you have a dream or a project or goal, it's your job. Go find that community. Go add value to that community. Go build that community. Don't sit there and go, I don't know anybody who, I don't allow that in high performance. In high performance, we go, listen, it's not your job to wait for the cavalry to come in. Your job is to go out to assemble the army, baby. Let's go. That's your job. That's self-reliance. You go assemble the army. Don't complain you ain't got one. That's the job. Jamie, who has unlimited reach and resources in so many ways, she still did the grind of having to go meet all these new people to support this new goal, this new project, her book and her live event. Literally none of that existed 3 years ago. Is that right, Jamie? Like none.
Right.
She built it. And I'm like, and why? Because she believed that she could. I celebrate Jamie. I hope you guys all too, because she didn't just sit and wait and hope. She was like, no, I'm proactively going to build the community I need to cheer me on, encourage me, and support me. That is what I'm going to do because I have this dream. And that's what I'm going to end with today. Jamie, you got a magazine shoot today, you were saying? Tell us about what's going on over there.
Yeah, it's the book, my first ever book, Believe It, is launching in just under 5 weeks. We're under 5 weeks away. So I feel like I'm going to blink and it's going to be here. And so it's probably the most vulnerable thing I've ever done, where I just literally pour everything I have and all the things I wish I knew. It would have saved me a million nights crying myself to sleep, and the whole journey of starting in my living room and facing rejection for 3 years straight, solid, and building at cosmetics. And so now the 5 week mark, all the press starts that it comes out when the book launches. So today is a magazine shoot all day long. And I'll share more soon. But, I was thinking about this, and actually, being MLK Day today, this morning I was in hair, getting ready. I haven't done makeup yet, in hair, and I was watching Dr. Martin Luther King's speeches, some of them, right, which I've done my whole life. And I watched one this morning that's all about growing, actually. It's all about like keeping it moving. And he talked a lot about your life's blueprint. And he was using these words long before so many other people were using them, right? And he talked about your life's blueprint, about how no one else can tell you you're not worthy. And when I was thinking about this, his words, I was kind of having this big aha moment just to share with everyone in the Growth Day community this morning, in case you go through this too. But like sometimes it's ourself that's the one telling ourselves we're not worthy. And on a
most of the time, probably.
Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time. And you're making up stories about other people thinking you're not worthy.
Yes.
So either you're telling yourself, oh, I'm not worthy, or you're thinking they don't think I'm worthy. And either way, it's a story that's probably, making you feel worse than you really need to.
Exactly. And, on this day, right, I have this big magazine shoot all day. They want 6 different looks, all these things. First of all, I have to fight in my own head the whole imposter syndrome, which is like, how is a girl like me, who is a waitress at Denny's, all these things, doing 6 looks How do we even figure out what looks are? That's the first thing. Like fashion looks, right? You see me, I love some sweats. I love some comfy sweats, right? So I'm like, okay, 6 looks today.
Does 6 looks mean 6 outfits?
Mm-hmm.
Or does that? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Because when I do magazine shoots, they usually like they show up with stuff and they put it on. I wander around, and that's about it. I'm really.
And that's about it.
I'm the worst. I don't. I don't do press. I decided very early on I didn't want to be in the PR land. So very rarely do I do press. And every time I do, I realize why I don't. It's so exhausting. I really admire people who can do days of press and they do it consistently. We take for granted. It's really exhausting. People are bossing you around all day. You're just kind of wondering when you get to sit down or get to eat. It's a full schedule. Everyone wants to be famous or they want days of magazine shoots and all that. And then they do their first like PR junket in New York. And you do like 16 shows in a day. At the end, it's a privilege and a joy and it's fun. And at the same time, it's work. Like you had to get up. You got up, what, 5 o'clock today just to prepare and get hair and makeup and everything else getting ready?
Yeah, we had hair at 5, had to get up at 4 to shower, all that stuff. Got to. And, here's the thing is like, what a blessing, what a gift that I get to spread the word about the book. Like, that's what really drives me, right? But what I'm realizing, and Brendan, listening to MLK's speech this morning, Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, talking about telling ourselves we're not worthy or having other people tell you you're not worthy, exactly what you said. This is a day that the old me, the me that for decades has done lots of different things, and I'm working still, as you know, I'm a lifetime student, still working to grow out of this. The old me for sure would have let my inner critic take over all day and just powered through, hoping like, does this outfit fit? Are they thinking I really should be in this shoot? Are they regretting doing a story on all those things we tell ourselves, right? It doesn't have to be a magazine shoot. It could just be hopping on Zoom for something at work, or, how many times, that we get an invite to a high school reunion. Brendan, I don't know if you'll relate to this, but you coach so many people that I think you'll understand this at such a deep level. We get an invite to a high school reunion or something like that. So many of us, the first thing we think of is, oh, when I show up, how much weight have I gained? How much, all these things, right? To the point where we don't even enjoy it.
Yes.
And I remember a quote. Will you remind us all, if you remember it, there's a quote you said, and I saved it because I look at it often, and it said something about, I'll paraphrase and then maybe you'll remember it exactly, but you can accomplish all these things. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is you get to the end of your life and you look back and you're like, I forgot to enjoy it.
I forgot to enjoy it. Yes, that's the worst. Imagine looking in the mirror, you're 80, 90, 100 years old and you had longevity, but you look in the mirror and you just go, you never felt it. You never enjoyed it. You never took the time to be there. And I also think, coming back to your high school reunion idea or the magazine shoot, or all of you who are walking in to do, networking in a Zoom room, or when we come back to regular life and we're hanging out with people here again. I love this saying. It's not from me. I can't remember who said it, but I love it. Love it. There's 2 kinds of people in the world. One walks into the room and goes, "Here I am." And the other person walks in the room and goes, "Oh, there you are." And they're excited to see you. They're excited to acknowledge you, to validate you, to welcome you, to make sure that you feel at home. Yeah. And those are the people that we want to be in our lives. Those are that's being the role model, but it's also being, less ego driven. Instead of being so concerned, what do I look like? Who am I like? What's going on here? I've always, the way I got over myself, because everyone still knows and grows, I'm a dork. I love geeking out on personal development. I love books. I love to write. I'm more of even though I teach and I'm, millions and millions of hours of video by now, I generally mostly enjoy being alone, dorking out about my ideas, drawing up, creating ideas and charts and everything everywhere. And so when I go to talk with people, often I want to share that with them. And I have all these ideas. And I know there's lots of people, ideas. I just want to talk ideas. But the best thing I ever did to get over myself and be comfortable with other people is instead ask them about their ideas. Ask about, if you walk into your high school networking, gym and you walk in, instead be like, hey, ask people, hey, how you doing? Hey, what do you think of all this? Yeah. One of my favorite questions, what do you think of all this? Oh, I love the punch bowl, or look at this, or hey, this is happening. I love that we're together. Hey, how you been? Just acknowledging and appreciating other people is such a lost art because we tend to have agendas, because we tend to want to project something. And here's the number one thing. Most people really believe the idea they only have 10 seconds to make a first impression, or they only have 30 seconds to say it right. And I'm like, nothing in life that matters is judged in 30 seconds. In other words, give yourself time to build a relationship. Give yourself time to enjoy that moment. She was like, well, you have 7 minutes on that major show. I'm like, there's going to be 100 other shows in your future. Some shows you're going to do are an hour-long podcast. Some shows you're going to do are in person. And so I'm just here to say, enjoy it, but also make it about other people. Ask them, validate them, and you'll feel better.
Of course, when we talked about the other day about reading customer letters on QVC, right? It was a whole thing in the green room of putting into practice the idea that I think, exactly to your point, it's like, oh, this isn't about me. It's about something so much bigger, right? And I think that's huge. And I was going to ask you actually, because I think this lifelong journey for so many people of overcoming our inner critic, right? And even going to a whole new, transcending the whole new thing and going, oh, who's my inner champion? Can I wake that person up, right? Yes. Can I wake up my inner champion? And so many of us are like, oh, inner champion, maybe you haven't heard your inner champion ever, or in a long time. And so, Brendan, coaching millions of people like you have, I'm so fascinated to hear for you, like if you also, or I should say, because I think this is universal, I think this happens to everyone, but when you're in a moment where you're doing something and all of a sudden that inner critic, you hear that inner critic, right? How do you turn down the volume on that? What do you do to go to silence your inner critic, or handle your inner critic, or overcome your inner critic, and then swap it to your inner champion? Or what are your tools? Because I feel like no matter what we're doing in life, where we're at in life, what our situation is inside our own family, inside our jobs, inside our hopes and dreams, it's just it's the biggest obstacle, I think, for so many of us. Yeah.
I think one, you have to realize that replacing the inner critic in the moment is super hard. And so you have to think of everything you're doing is like, there's the pre-work, there's the actual in the moment flow work, and then there's the post work. The pre-work is, okay, before the inner critic is to start, you start your morning by tapping into your authentic self, meditating, feeling, thinking about who you are, what's important to you, your morning routine of intention setting, your morning routine of purpose statements, your morning routine of filling your head with good thoughts, your morning routine of acknowledging your strength to show up another day, your day of gratitude for appreciating that you have these opportunities. Meaning you got to start the day. The growth day starts with self-talk. And the self-talk, you have to condition the positive voice inside your inner champion. You have to amplify that, turn it up, and talk to it every morning and every day if you ever want that to be louder than the critic. What most people do is they bumble through the day. A doubt comes up. They hear it. They go, is that true? They start amplifying that thing because there's no other voices. Your job is to find your authentic voice, your acknowledging, aware, compassionate, loving self voice. Give that so much volume so many times that's just, that station's louder. That station is louder because you're on that station more. So now when the other one starts interfering and coming in, you can go, oh, what is it saying here? And it's almost always, the inner critic is really a doubtful voice. It's almost always a doubtful voice. I doubt my capability. I doubt who I am. I doubt I'm capable. I'm worthy. I doubt myself. And doubt doesn't mean stop or shut down. Doubt means, oh, this is a signal to be more present and intentional. Oh, this isn't to question myself and my capabilities. It's going, oh, hey, I don't know if I can do this. Let me pay attention. Doubt's a great signal to pay attention and to engage the best of who we are. It's like, oh, those butterflies, that's saying, oh, let's align here. Let's get focused here. Let's bring some attention to this. So first, don't think that voice will ever go away. It's going to be there. It's always going to pop up. But don't think it's a negative thing telling you you're terrible. It's saying pay attention. And then also up the station on that authentic, acknowledging, loving self-talk each day, the affirmative side of who you are. Listen to that so often and give yourself that blessing so often, because some of you, it's not going to be your spouse who's going to acknowledge you or validate you. So, some of you, it's not going to be your parents or your sister, your brothers, or the people in your industry. They're all going to doubt you or judge you or push you. So you've got to affirm yourself. You've got to tap into that truth, that knowing, that beauty, that soul, that spirit, that authenticity that says, why I do deserve to have a good day today. I do have good intentions for today. Let me listen to that part of me more often. And that conditioning of positive, affirming self-talk starts becoming a part of real confidence, right? Conditioned self-talk becomes confident capability.
So good. You know, I'm looking at so many of your comments right now, and so many people are saying this is so timely. I needed to hear this right now, because, you know, one of the things I love about this is when we talk about even conditioning and starting our day that way with positive self-talk. I hope the Growth Day Morning Show is a big part of that, of just hearing that, you know, inspiration, like all of us coming together and growing. But, you know, one person also, with Sarah, just commented that, you know, the inner critic always comes back, right? And you're saying, it always comes back. And here's the thing is, I feel like our inner critic can get so loud. And I feel like so many of us know when we're hearing it, when we're hearing that inner critic, A, we would never say those things to another human being. And B, when we're saying them about ourselves, we kind of still know, in big part, we know they're not true, but but somehow we still, it's so easy to believe it. It's easy to know we're made for more. We're created for more. We have more to give, more to offer, more to serve, more inside of us than we're expressing or giving or living right now. And yet it's so easy to still doubt it anyways, right?
What if the inner critic was an inner guide? And the inner critic was just saying to you, hey, right now, you've got your station turned on to me, the inner critic, the low station, the self-doubt station. Yeah. And you, instead of going, oh, that critic's so scary, and let me find all the reasons to criticize me, it's like, oh, the inner critic is actually calling you to summon the better part of you. It's saying, hey, you're listening to the lowly insecurities right now. Let me amplify those insecurities so you're aware that you're listening to them, dummy. What you need to do right now is switch to the other station. I am guiding you with all this blaring noise to summon a higher part of you. Mm-hmm. The inner critic is summoning the higher part of you, not shutting you down. It's summoning you. It's not going to go away. There's always going to be that part of you going, hey, dummy, you're smarter, you're better. Hey, let me judge you just enough that you get edgy and you go, no, I'm better than this, and you show up. It's egging you on to show up better, not shut down. As soon as you get that, oh, I'm being egged on like a good friend. Because listen, the inner critic is you. Yeah. And that's a good friend to you saying, hey, I'm going to bug you just enough. I'm going to shame you just enough. I'm going to doubt you just enough until you finally go, F no, let's go. I'm going to try to piss you off. That's what the inner critic is going to do. They're there to amplify you to go, no, I am better than this. It is actually summoning strength. And if you can hear that, instead of being diminished, be called. When crisis doesn't diminish you, when conflict doesn't diminish you, when fear doesn't diminish you, but rather you sense it as a calling to rise to something, to a higher standard, to serve. This is why today we celebrate Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King had the same challenges so many people did. What he did was he said, I have a dream. I'm going to rise up. I'm going to learn to do all of these things that he didn't know how to do, to lead an incredible movement that we still celebrate today. You have to think about it, like, whoa, that's 60 years later. We're still celebrating this person. Why? Because all those calls, all those judgments, all that hate, he said, I'm not going to let the darkness shut me down, because it is only light and love that will lift us up. So I'm gonna amplify those. You can hit me with all the hate you want, but I'm gonna activate love. That's the change. When it's not a diminishment, but a calling to rise above it, that's a mindset shift that now helps us activate. I hope that helps everybody.
So good, you guys. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So many comments. So many comments.
I appreciate each of you. And thank you for cheering me and Jamie on in this Growth Day morning show. This is new for us too. We both had doubts. We had our first couple of days were technologically challenged on both sides. I still think I look so goofy with these white things hanging in my ear. I still got this camera taped up with this blue tape over here. Jamie's got hers. So we're still figuring it out, but we feel like, okay, so what? We're not doing it perfectly. We are called to serve. Stop worrying if you show up perfectly or you look perfect. Show up to serve. And enough times doing that, you're recognized.
So good what you said. And I always, one of the things I think about a lot is we all face opposition, right? Sometimes it is our inner critic, but we also all have a calling. And I think that so many times, I believe always your calling is stronger than your opposition. But so much of life comes down to which one we listen to. Yes. And you talk about, Dr. Martin Luther King, and I think obviously so much opposition, during his time. And obviously his calling was so much bigger, right? And that's what he listened to. And I think that, I don't know, I just keep going back to those words you shared earlier too, about walking into a room and instead of saying, here I am, saying, here you are, right? I think that's when we make it not about us and it's something so much bigger than us. For me, I think in my journey, that's, how one of my best strategies for overcoming that inner critic, because for me, that inner critic is there every single day. Every single day. I even doubted, even though I've gone on national television thousands of times with no makeup. This is my first Growth Day morning show with no makeup. And I had a moment where I'm like, but it's like, oh, no. The only way to have authentic human connection is to fully show up as ourselves. The only way to serve is to not worry about stuff like that literally doesn't matter, right? And so it's kind of growth in progress, growth in process, I think, for so many of us, and some of the tips you shared on how you frame in your own mind that inner critic. I've never heard that before. That's so powerful. That's so powerful, as if it's the station summoning you to get so angry that you're like, F that, and you transcend it. Huge.
Yeah, it's your best friend egging you on saying, oh, it's like if your best friend was like, oh yeah, you suck. And you're like, hold it. It's just like if you ever saw people playing sports and you're playing basketball with someone, the crap talking is done to summon a higher level of game. They've actually measured this in communication studies in sports. Less crap talk tends to lead to less incredible performance. And it's not because we're not diminishing each other. We're egging each other on to play at a higher level. Now, I know there's lots of judgment about even that in sports, but I think my point is recognizing that all your inner fears aren't meant to shut you down. They're meant to help you pay attention. You were talking about resistance and all the resistance. And I hope everybody, by the way, spend some time today watching some, speeches from Dr. Martin Luther King. If you haven't read the autobiography, the official biographies, or any of his collected works of speeches, I can't even imagine this day for the last 23 years this year now. I read his speeches. I have a big book that my dad gave me that I just read his speeches. And it's so, so powerful to see what he was willing, and not just him, the entire Southern Christian Leadership Conference and so many other great leaders of that time, trying to really speak up for something. And he said, if our main question is, who were you serving? And he said that if we aren't willing to speak up for what is right, then we're not living life. And so many of his great quotes that everyone will share on the internet today, I'm sure, just remind us to stand for something. Even if you are scared, stand for something. You're not doing a magazine shoot today. You're standing for something today. You're standing for a message. Yeah. We aren't worried about our insecurities of, I'm like, is my kettlebell in the shot today? I hope not, and I don't even care. It's like we stand for something at Growth Day. We stand for the belief that you can grow, that you can change, that you can have better days, that you can shift your attitude. We stand for something. So we're not trying to make everything pretty. You're going to stand for something today. And everyone needs to realize, what do you stand for today? What is it that you stand for? And the less you ask yourself that, the more the insecurity voice just fills it in. Oh, you aren't intentional enough to stand for something? Let me just fill it in with some noise here.
Yeah.
That's what happens. I would say your negative self-talk is because you haven't filled in the void.
Yeah, so good.
You got to. I work on this. Look at this. I got this. I pulled this off the desk. This is a calendar of affirmations from Hay House. This is Louise Hay. I hope you all read "You Can Heal Your Life" from Louise Hay. Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer, who were like who really made and rounded out Hay House with Reed Tracy as CEO. It's a whole book of affirmations. I've been doing personal development for 20 years professionally. I still read my affirmations and I read them out loud because I want that voice to be activated. I would love for you all in your morning routine to read out your Bible verses or read out your favorite motivational quotes or read out that part of that spiritual text that you love. Read something out, like activate the voice. You've been given voice. If you have the blessing of speaking, you've been given voice. Activate that in a positive, affirming way. And it becomes a language pattern in your head that's louder than the insecure, quiet things. You know what I mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima!
Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.